Hi everyone, nice to see you. At least you're seeing me, I'm not seeing you, but I'm happy that you're watching. We're going to do lesson 1 of week 1, and this is chapter 5, Sense It, and it starts on page 118. So the first paragraph is called Stimuli and Responses. If you have a notebook and a pen with you right now, that would be wonderful because you need to make some notes of the keywords. These keywords are very important so that you can understand the rest of the lesson. So take a pause, grab a pen and paper, and start the video again. All right, first word, stimulus. A stimulus is a signal that you can feel, something outside of your body or something inside of your body. Something inside of your body would be, for instance, a feeling of hunger or an emotion like sadness. And an external stimulus would be something you're hearing outside or something you're seeing or tasting and so forth. When you get such a stimulus, you react to that stimulus. For instance, when I call your name, you look at me, right? So, or when you feel hunger, you probably go ahead and find something to eat. So that reaction is called a response. You can see the word here, a response is a reaction to a stimulus. Because you're reacting, your body starts to move. Usually, right? So we are talking about effectors. Effectors are body parts that make a response possible. Most of the time, that's a muscle. For instance, I get an internal stimulus that I feel thirsty. Then my response is, I'm going to look for something to drink. And then my effector picks up something to drink. So the effector is the muscle in my arm. It could also be a gland. A gland is een klier in het Nederlands. Bijvoorbeeld een speekselklier. Imagine you smell something really delicious. Your glands in your mouth will react to make saliva, om speeksel te maken. So that is the response, and the glands in your mouth are the effectors. Now, if you look at how stimuli and responses work together, here's an example. There's also another example of a phone ringing and picking it up in your book, but I thought to make a second example. So here you have the stimulus, a glass of water. Now, here's a word called a receptor. The receptor is something in a sense organ, like an eye. An eye is an organ and it senses the stimulus, it feels the stimulus. And what happens inside is there are little cells inside, they're called receptors, inside your eye. So then a neuron or a nerve cell sends a signal from your sense organ, from the receptor in your sense organ, and it sends a signal to all these nerve cells, and the nerve cells then send a signal to the arm, to the effector. There's a muscle, and that is the response. You're picking up the glass of water. So stimulus, receptor, neurons, nerve cells, effector, response. Okay, here are some other words that you need to know, so you may want to write these down. Sensory receptors. Now, remember, sensory receptors are special cells on your sense organs. For instance, special cells in your eyes, special cells in your ear, special cells in your tongue, special cells on your skin, because skin, eye, ears, tongue, and so forth are sense organs, and inside there are the special cells called sensory receptors. And they convert the stimuli into electrical signals. For instance, in the case of the ear, a sound is a stimulus, then it gets into your ear, which is a sense organ. Inside your ear, there are sensory receptors that turn the sound into electricity. Another example, when you look at something, there's light coming into your eyes. So light is the stimulus, comes into your eye, which is the sense organ. The sense organ has receptors in it. The receptors turn the light into electricity. Nerve impulses are what the electricity is called. Nerve impulses, electrical signals. So those nerve impulses go from your sensory receptors to your brain and back from your brain to the effectors. Now your brain plays a very important part here. It is between your sense organs and your effectors and is connected to them by your neurons, your nerve cells. Here are the neurons, special cells in your whole body. So everywhere in your body you've got neurons, and a lot of them in your brain. And those conduct or transmit the nerve impulses to their destination. Now, what am I talking about exactly? Maybe you'd like to see a picture, right? So here's the picture again, the same picture we saw previously. Stimulus, sense organ with receptors, and here the sensory neurons. Well, remember I told you there's the brain. Well, the brain is right here, and the brain organizes everything. You see, it is in between the sense organ and the effector, and is connected by sensory neurons. Now, the sensory neurons transmit nerve impulses. Here are the nerve impulses, and the nerve impulses go to the brain and then back from the brain to the effector. So when something happens, the nerve impulse goes to your brain. Your brain then decides what's going on. What do I see? What do I hear? What do I smell? And the brain then decides to react to that. So it gives a command to react and give a response. And so it sends another nerve impulse through motor neurons. You can see that. Don't worry about the word motor. I'm going to explain that later. Just say neurons. And then to the effector, and then there's a response. You decided to pick up your glass when you were thirsty. It's not automatic, right? Okay, so now we have the situation where it's not automatic. The voluntary response. A response at your will. You want to make that response. And it's usually done by the muscles in your skeleton. If you think all your responses are at your own will, you're mistaken, because there's also involuntary responses. Now, an involuntary response is a response without your will. Automatic, though involuntary muscles on your organs, for instance, like on your stomach, on your intestines, those muscles you cannot control. So when you're hungry, you have an internal stimulus and your stomach starts to grounge and grumble. That's an involuntary response. When you make saliva, speeksel in your mouth because you smell something good, that's an involuntary response. Okay, we're at the end of lesson 1. So for you, it is now good to start working on your questions in the workbook on page 120. Do the assignments 1, 2, and 3, make a photo and upload it to Magister in opdrachten. I'll see you next time. Bye!